Welcome to Warbird Tube. This is episode number 238, and tonight, strap in, because we are going to spotlight some of the greatest fighter aces of World War II, 10 of them, and our guest tonight, Konley Kelley, has a great slideshow set up, but he's got a lot of slides, so we're going to be moving quite quickly, but that doesn't mean that you can't join in the fun as well. If you have some questions as we're talking tonight, please just put those in the chat box, and we'll try to answer them either while we're talking during the presentation, or we'll save some time at the end to do so. And we'd like to welcome you if you're a first timer to Warbird Tube, welcome. And if you're a loyal Warbird Tube fan, welcome back. Now, if you would do us a favor, help us spread the word and share Warbird Tube on your favorite social media platform. Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. If you'd like to learn more about the CAF, our aircraft, our events, local units, or how you can be a part of the fun, just visit us at commemorativeairforce.org. And with that, Con, great to have you back on the show, and we'll kind of kick off your presentation here tonight, and let folks know that we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. So it's all yours.
Well, thank you. Hope I'm loud and clear with all of you, and it's been a while since I've been here. This is so much fun. I love the show. I love the folks that run the show and being connected to CAF. So I said I'd come back if I had something new. So I do. And we may not get through all the slides, but we'll stop at some point, and I hope I'm going to inspire some people to ask questions about this, especially if they're into this hobby and how it ties to history. So let's get going. So this is my background. I'm avid scale and 3D modeler. I've been the CAF 15 years now. I was the first education officer for the B-29 squadron. I did about a couple terms there. I've been at Dallas College for 28 years. It's a long time to work for community college and corporate training. I just became a FAA certified remote pilot, which is pretty interesting to see. That's a tough test, I'll tell you. And my drone's name is If, which if you think it's beefy backwards, but and then I was just telling Stephen Lee, I just became a grandpa for the second time. So that's fun. We'll be modeling with those kids soon, but they need to get older before they're handling glue and paint. They're just 1 and 2 years old. Here's my website right below that. And then what really inspired this, and we're going to talk more about it, is I've interviewed a lot of veterans myself for the newsletter that I've worked on at CAF and other things. And you often ask them, a good question to ask them, and I learned this from Andy Fancher, a young guy who was doing this in high school. At high school, he was interviewing over 50 veterans at the time. Came and spoke to our CAF group. He would ask at the end, how do you want to be remembered? And that's a great question to ask a veteran. You get all kinds of answers. It might just not be about their military career. They might be about their career after that, or family, or something else. But I was thinking, and a lot of these veterans have passed on, how do we remember them? And that's kind of my focus tonight. So this is going to be the agenda. I'm going to very quickly, we'll talk about what I call next level history, but then we're going to dive into the aces that I'm focusing on, and there'll be a little bit of next level history in there, but I want to just give you a taste of who they were. I can't go in depth in this kind of setting, and of course, for the amount of time we have, but I can maybe touch on some things you don't know, but really I'm going to show you my art. And I hate to be the show for tonight, but I guess I'm kind of hardcore. I have a lot of art to show, but I also have some modeling tips and techniques in there, and I have some interesting guest stars, I guess, coming in, people I've encountered over time, especially in the art world. I'll have some of their work to show. But I picked 10 aces. Rhyme or reason, a lot of them I have made models of their planes even some years ago. So it just seemed like a nice group, and I wanted to include a German ace and a British ace and a Japanese ace. And then we're going to talk about how you can go next level. I have some ideas maybe to throw at you. And then if we have Q&A, what I'd love to hear, you probably do go next level with some of the ways you engage with history. I think we need to hear that in the chat. So what is next level? But we're going to look at history, because you can apply it to anything, but history is why we're here tonight. And I had this list last time. I don't know if it's a scale, or I said last time these were bullet points. Maybe multiple bullet points could apply to you. Almost all of them apply to me. I do a lot of these things in my engagement with history. But after the Bismarck show I did about 2.5 years ago, I don't know, it was the cues I put into social media. I got barraged with my feed about the Bismarck, and I realized there are a lot of people hardcore about that subject matter. And then, I don't know if you've heard this, but Phil Collins, he's a drummer for Genesis, right? So he's a kid, I guess, in the 50s, and he's watching the Davy Crockett show on the Disney Channel. He became obsessed with the Alamo. He had about 400 artifacts that he'd acquired from the Alamo battle, including Davy Crockett's gun and Santa Anna's sword. And so finally it came to a point where he decided to donate it to the Alamo. So he's donated them. They built a 2-story building behind the Alamo to house all of his stuff. So
Wow.
he's hardcore, and you never know, but he's an Alamo fanatic. And then David McCampbell, we had Mincy 3 at an air show at Dallas a while back, and I wanted to see Mincy 3, and I thought, well, I'm going to come. I know a lot about David McCampbell, so I brought my models, I brought my art, I brought some books about him, and then I realized, they're out, the plane's parked out in the tarmac. They can't have sandwich boards around it. Talking about David McCampbell, wouldn't be safe. And it's a beautiful plane, but it looks like it could have just flown off the USS Essex. It's perfectly painted and marked for his plane. So I found myself talking to a lot of people who came to the show to talk about David McCampbell because they knew that plane would be there. So I found that interesting. And then lastly, I've been starting to build figures, and I'm reading books about it because the ACES. And one of the CAF people that works with Leah wrote a story about Douglas Bader just before I was going to write a story for my newsletter. So I wrote my story in a different way, which is kind of what we're doing tonight, because I knew I couldn't hold a candle to her knowledge. Plus, I felt like I had some different perspectives on it. So, so this is just something you might see tonight's slideshow and think, how do I ever have the time to do this? Well, you have to have an understanding wife. And my wife one time said she wanted to build a model with me. So I said, that's great, honey, let's do it. I was so excited. And this is her model of a lead tank. We call it the Beverly Hills tank. But it is important that she gives me the time, lets me do this. And frankly, I don't think economically it's not an expensive hobby. It's not like golfing. I'm at home at least, but I think she'd like me to get out more. And why? So we moved to Louisville, Texas. I've never had a place to really showcase all my stuff. And the CAF is the key to that. I've collected stuff. I've met some interesting people, autographs, signed books and things. So I finally had a space for it. This is called Con's Hangar. This is the one room my wife gave me in our new house in Louisville. And I have all my art and everything spread around, but it really does with you can see my computer desk. That's a giant Roy Grinnell canvas print right in front of it. There's some other pieces right next door. I'll be talking about him tonight. And on my bookshelf, I got a lot of wonderful books. So it's inspiring to be in this room. And I know this room will be where I do my work for years to come after the college. Hopefully direct it some kind of way to celebrate history and find a way to work with others on that. So this is a great meeting spot. I'm thinking of having a hanger dance here, maybe a book signing. I don't know. It's selling memberships, but it's nice to have a space like that. And this is the modeling nook that I put in just last year, and that's really rebooted my interest in modeling. It's a nice little space. My son had got me this magnifying glass light, which at our age we need magnifying glasses, and it works really well. So I found it to be a good productive space, and I can still do my computer work right next to it. We're going to talk about the ACES literally in just a few seconds, but I wanted to mention 3D modeling. Probably some of you watch Masters of the Air on the Apple TV channel.
Yeah.
I immediately started exploring what kind of models, what kind of planes were on the show, what the histories of some of the planes, and these texture maps to the right are planes that were actually on the first Berlin mission, and Algal, Sal, and others there. Several of these planes did blast throughout and weren't shot down. It seemed like the Bloody 100th had a rough time, but most of these planes, I think maybe all 4, maybe just 3 of them, ended up surviving the conflict. But anyway, that's a work in progress. I'm trying to figure out how to use this, but this is an acquired model. I'm going to talk about acquired models in a minute. I didn't build the B-17 from scratch. It's an interesting way to go. We talked about it a little bit 2.5 years ago, but now it's a lot more prevalent. You can get models on the internet. But let's hit AI head on, and then we'll hit the ACES. People have strong opinions about AI, especially in the art world, and I understand it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I consider myself an artist, but you wonder how to use this tool. Well, quick example. I wanted to have a Mount Fuji background and a rendering, so you can't use a World War II picture. Too grainy and not practical. It's really, going to go to a travel site and grab a picture of Mount Fuji off a travel site, or worse yet, find somebody's travel pictures on the Facebook or something.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's good. Or you can go to a landscape generator, topographical generator, or if you're hardcore, you can get a airline ticket, fly to Japan, rent a helicopter, and fly around Mount Fuji. But that's just not practical. So AI, baby. I mean, I prompted it several times to give me Mount Fuji exactly how I wanted it. Put my 3D airplanes right in front of it, and it gave me the art I wanted. So
Wow.
I think it's a tool. I think it's a tool. I think you maybe need to acknowledge it to some degree, but there's also a point where this becomes truly my art, and it's just a paintbrush. So I don't know. We could talk about that. There are people who probably would take it too far to one extreme and try to claim it as their own when the computer's doing for them. But let's let that all pan out. We have hopefully a little while to go for robots take over. Okay, so let's go to
There we go.
modeling the aces.
Now, Con,
Yes, sir.
before you move on, how much of your modeling now is, I guess, the old style, actual physical models versus what you're doing with 3D? Or is it 50-50 or 60-40?
Yeah, it's always been 50-50, but it's interesting
Okay.
about which one I do first.
Okay.
With this ACES project, I was trying to fill in some gaps and to get some scale models done. Scale models are still more of a commitment.
Right.
Like I like to say, 3D models, you don't have to wait for the paint or glue to dry, and you can work it out. But scale models are commit me if I paint and plan for it and plan for. It's more of it's like project management in a way.
Yeah.
Also, they're unforgiving. I mean, once you mess it with scale models, hard, and they cost money. But I think it's 50-50 still. It just depends on where I want to go with it. And I am relearning my 3D software now a little bit, getting a little bit better at it because I got a newer package. So I see Strata. So when I started the ACES project, I really started out with 4 a couple years ago, and then right away you have people saying, "Yeah, I like it, but where's David McCampbell?" Okay, well. So then I was able to acquire a really nice Hellcat model, which means I also have to texture map it and manipulate it, and that takes some skill. It isn't like you just put a texture map on it. So I had 5 aces, and I thought, hey, why not go big? We're in Texas, right? Let's go 10 aces. So this is what kind of spawned the project. So I have 10 aces in 3D, and then I didn't have them on scale. So I started finishing that off, and I just built General Golan's BF-109 using the airbrush, which I'm getting a little bit better at. So these are my 10 models now, and then 10 figures. And what's fascinating about the figures, and you'll see more in the slides coming, is that there's some sculptors now using resin and some high-end 3D modeling and printing tools. They are making figures that look exactly like the person, and these are really tiny people here. But some of these were designed to look like that particular person. Others, I just kind of adopted that figure and made it look like my ace. But here are my 10 aces, and we're going to explore this. Here's an AI thing, though. I have had AI look at that image you just saw and put these guys at an aces reunion in a hotel banquet room, and this is what AI did. The funny thing is that Bud Anderson figure is glued to the plane, so he can't come off the plane and have a beer with these guys. But I just thought it was funny. It did this. In fact, somebody said that was General Stalin in the middle, but it's supposed to be General Golan. So let's start with Bud Anderson. And what's neat about when I talk about Bud Anderson is, thanks to the American Fighter Aces Association, I'll talk about them more, I've connected with Bud Anderson's son, Jim. Bud Anderson, he just had his 104th heavenly birthday yesterday. He would have turned 104. He died at 102. And so Jim has a beautiful website. It's the best website I've ever seen to carry on the legacy of his father and continue to connect people with his father and everything that was great about what he did as a veteran and piloting and so forth. So this is just a basic bio on him. I don't want to go through the bios because, as Lee and I talked about, a lot of you probably know a lot more about Anderson than I do. But I just highlighted a few things that are interesting. And one thing here, I got some inside scoop that nobody knows because I talked to Jim. And it says there that Old Crow completed 116 combat missions without being hit by enemy fire. Well, Jim said on one mission, Bud had come back and they were inspecting the plane and they found a hole in the plane. And so I don't know if they contributed to enemy fire or not, but one of the guys welded an English shilling over the hole. So he told me that. I thought that was great. And you can see the rest of it. He went on to be a test pilot and write memoirs, and he was at many air shows. wish I had a chance to meet him. Jim said that they're going to be reissuing his biography, and now it's on audiobooks too.
Oh, good.
There's the website there. Also, there's going to be an exhibit, I guess a World War II exhibit at the Smithsonian that's going to be beefed up, I hear. And they're going to have Bud Anderson's uniform there. And so there's a picture you'll see of him looking at that. Jim did tell me that Eleanor always wondered, that was his fiance, later wife, why other pilots would name their planes after their sweethearts, and his plane was named after whiskey. But that was just something she wondered. And from a modeling standpoint, it's a very popular model to build for modelers because it's such a cool looking plane.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned that hull already. And then, down the legacy part, he has 4 grandchildren. We're going to see they have a picture of one. They just had a grandchild, and they named the grandchild, was it Claire? Anyway, Claire or something like that to honor his name, Clarence, his given name, Clarence. So this is some pictures Jim sent me. There's several statues about Bud Anderson around different locations, and it's from California, so some of them are in California. There's some pictures of Jim strapping Bud in for his last Mustang flight at Oshkosh, and some super fans that wanted some autographs. And there he is looking at his uniform that's going in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
The other thing is pretty cool that Jim told me. I've always loved the dogfights episodes on the History Channel, and there's several that are Bud Anderson stories. One really, really good one, that's Death of Luftwaffe. It's entirely about Bud Anderson. And Bud Anderson consulted with them so the planes would fly more aerodynamically, and I watched it again. They still hold up. And then Bud had 2 really, really good friends that when he went stateside before the war ended, stayed to fight and were both killed. One of them, Captain Jim Browning, they believe had collided with an ME-262. And so Jim went out and found, I didn't put the country down, did I? But I think it was in probably Poland or maybe Eastern France, but they found the wreckage, and they were able to bring some of the wreckage back for the family. So that was pretty awesome. Here's my Old Crow model that I made this summer with the figure, and that's a figure that actually was a Pacific pilot. I made him a jacket, and so he's standing on his plane, and I thought that was neat because there's a really famous picture of Bud Anderson sitting on his plane right at the wing root, so I wanted to kind of connect with that. Now, from model kit standpoint, it's hard to find a model that is for a D Mustang to make Old Crow. The Testers model, which I actually had, it's not very high quality, and the decals were crap, really. So, but the Tamiya models, there are a lot of Mustang models. If you can acquire some Old Crow decals, you can make Old Crow. The only thing that was hard for me is the checkered pattern as a decal, and it just didn't work. So I hand painted that. That's not easy, but the decal just wasn't working. So if you have steady hands, you can hand paint something. I'd recommend it. Sometimes the decals just don't work. Here's my 3D model, folks. So this is a 3D model texture mapped as Old Crow. These are original models, the FW190 and the Mustang. So I put them in kind of a dynamic setting. I've loved this. Really did turn out nicely, I think. And this is the later version of an Old Crow. Still got the invasion stripes in the belly there. And this is a display I made at my house. So this is a Old Crow label that my friend Gene Dickinson asked Bud Anderson to sign when he came out for his last American Fighter Aces reunion. And so he signed the label. That was very nice of him. So I got it with the book. And I also have it with one of my favorite B-17s, a bit of lace. And so I got a die-cast model, and then you see the die-cast model there. And then I retexture mapped my models to make a bit of lace to make a different diorama. So as a 3D, if you learn 3D, you can do so much with it. You can change things around, retexture map your models. And so then why not have Old Crow, lend a hand with the 100th and fight off some hawk wolves. So I did that with my 3D model. And this is something that Irene Grinnell. Irene Grinnell lives just a city over from me. This is the widow of Roy Grinnell. We lost Roy in 2019. I was very close to both of them for about 10 years. He was just amazing talent, and we'll talk more about him. Hopefully see some slides of his work later. But this is typical of Roy. He would meet the ace. At the time, he was painting all the aces. They were alive, and he would talk to them. He was meticulous about learning everything about the scene he was going to paint. Weather, clouds, the circumstances that were happening, because the only way to know that is the memory of the person. There's nothing really from World War II to show them that other than the memory. And so this is and And the thing that struck me the most is one of the pilots was so moved by seeing Roy's work once that his comment to Roy was, "It was like you're in the cockpit with me." That's a pretty good compliment. So this depicts a head-on dogfight where Old Crow had taken out this plane. I think they just came right at each other. And so this letter to the right is a letter back from Bud Anderson acknowledging the work and endorsing what the scene is and everything else. So that's something that Grinnell's did when they painted artwork. And so then that's Irene and Bud Anderson together in the corner. So why not? I said I'd have some guest aces tonight. Here's Chuck Yeager. So he flew a P-51. He was in the same squadron as Bud Anderson, but I read somewhere he wasn't. They were never wingmen, but they were in the same squadron. And so, Chuck Yeager shot down a jet. That's part of its history. And then a friend of mine who saw my museum, Chuck Burton, if I don't remember him, used to be in the 29 squadron with me. He gave me this amazing model of a Bell X-1. It's up here on my wall in my museum section. And it's signed by Chuck Yeager, so that's pretty neat. Okay, you got one too? Very nice. That looks like the same model. All right, so let's go on to the famous legless ace, Douglas Bader. And if you say it enough times, you'll say Bader and not Bader. It took me a while. So this is we're going to skip through some of this, but I just want you to know his experience as a POW is fascinating, and we'll maybe touch on that a little bit. So this is a tribute thing, and this evolves as this presentation goes on. I know that we can't read this. A lot of you, hopefully, you're probably looking at a phone and can't read it. But when he was captured after being shot down and he lost his prosthetic leg, it's very well known that Galland had him over met him for dinner, and then they made arrangements with the British to drop another prosthetic leg over the camp. So that happened, but I also heard the bomber that dropped the leg then went and bombed an enemy position after having funny. But and then immediately after he got his leg, he kept trying to escape. So they put him in Colditz, and that's where they put the worst prisoner. So he was there throughout the war. But the funny thing is, after the war, he's a celebrity, of course, and they made a movie about him starring Kenneth More, and he didn't like the movie very much because he swore like a sailor, and it made him out. It was kind of cheesy. He thought so. I can't share something I know about him, but he used a lot of colorful language. But he liked the movie, of course. And then Kenneth More went on to be in the Bismarck, and then on his Longest Day and Battle of Britain. And then he went on to become an incredible golfer with his prosthetic legs at a really low handicap, and he got knighted for his work with disabled. So really incredible man. Just some snapshots. I did an article about him, so I had these snapshots handy. So you can see him in Colditz. He's walking with Galland in one picture. He worked for Shell Oil and is golfing. He's getting he's becoming Sir Douglas Bader in the corner there. So making a model of him, you are in luck, folks, because the Revell kit, pictured here, still in a lot of stores. It's super cheap, and it has decals for Douglas Bader. And if you can get this Legend kit, that's a good figure. That looks just like him. I mean, I hope you agree. I mean, my painting isn't as good as that person, but I think if you want to do it, what I did, what I'm showing you tonight, you can do it with Douglas Bader with these model kits and project aftermarket stuff you get. They're like the figure. So we'll talk about scale tonight. I'm able to use this as not AI. I'm able to just show you we are talking about scales. Modeling scales, you'll see 1/48 tonight. That's a pretty typical scale. All the planes behind me are 1/48. 1/32, it's probably hanging from the ceiling, and there are a couple like that. It's bigger, takes up more shelf space, so hang it up. If you're a ceiling fan, those can be a problem, so just watch it. 70 seconds, popular, but it's harder to get the detail down, and then that other one would probably get lost in the rug. Anyway, so this is a 1/48 scale with my Douglas Bader character. Turned out really great. I'm really happy with it. I enjoyed it, hand painted it, tried to use the accurate colors for it. And then I had this kick where I was putting the models on the book, kind of create a pseudo diorama with them in their biography, so you'll see that throughout. And I encourage you. I mean, I haven't read all the books I'm showing you, but I have a collection, so I know that I could spend a whole summer if I ever retire and read books if I want to, because I have other books there.
Very good.
Here, you do too, I'm sure. So when you're about to make your 3D model, you want to start looking at your texture mapping. And so you're going to look at line art. You're going to look at the model directions. You're going to look at actual planes where other modelers work. But you're going to look at how the line art lays out on the 3D model, just like it did on the scale model. And the different just features and nuances of the model are helpful. It is helpful sometimes to have the model to look at beforehand, so you can see it, visualize it. And then this, I mentioned this is the 1/32 scale, the model on the right. It's easier to print a figure in a 1/72 scale model, but the key is if you're going to hang a model up to look like it's flying, you should put a figure in it, right, Steve? They don't fly themselves, right?
That's
Autopilot.
right.
Okay, so this is interesting and another AI thing. So this is a scale model, and I think I found that picture was somebody's picture out of their plane window. I beg forgiveness, but just not great. So this is what AI can do. Ready? A little better, right? This
Wow.
is AI. I told it to make the White Cliffs of Dover, and it did. And this is a 3D Spitfire model I acquired, but I had to do some texture mapping on it. Came out really nice, and if I went on to battle, who better than Douglas battling, Galland, his friend, in the middle of countryside over the White Cliffs of Dover and London. So there they are together. Looks really cool. And then Douglas Bader, he's out there now. He's hunting a FW-190. This is AI again. I told it to make the English channel. I think I said at one point take the bridge off the English channel, but anyway, there's the English channel for you. And then this is just one quickie. This is the next level stuff I talked about. My folks knew a man. He's passed away since. He lived near them in Central California on the coast. He had served. He was worked for American Airlines for a long time, based in England. He loved it. So when he came back to California, he turned one of his rooms into an English pub, and it was very authentic. And I had a pint with him there, and I told the Grinnells about it, and Roy Grinnell sent him some artwork to put in the pub. He was so amazed to get that. And then my dad said, "You got to make him a model." Okay, I'm going to make a model and come from Dallas, California, put the model in my suitcase. But I did, and I made Douglas Bader's plane, and it's in the pub now.
Nice.
But sadly, we lost Raoul and all that. So during the pandemic, well, he was over 90 years old, but I think his pub is still there, according to my mom, and probably Spirit is definitely there. So let's go on to another ace. Check my timing here. We're going to have a few aces toward the end. It'll be quicker. Unfortunately, Dick Bong didn't live beyond the war, so that there's not a lot to cover about his story after the war. But we definitely heard it at a Warbird Tube episode, and I was fascinated. I didn't know a lot about, especially the Bing Crosby stuff. That was fascinating. So I can't really hold a candle to that, but he's somebody you definitely want to model because he's famous and his plane is so cool, P-38 Lightning. So some of the things that are interesting about this, there's a fantastic museum. I've never been into it myself. The one up in Wisconsin, Superior, Wisconsin. Looks great. They have a lot of activities. And now this article to the right, they found Marge, his plane, the wreckage of it, because after he rotated back, they were still flying his plane and crashed. So they just found the wreckage to his plane. There's a replica of Marge that looks great in the museum. And they knew Thomas McGuire, who was the second leading ace in the U.S. And so they were good friends. I really didn't know a lot about their friendship. I know they were really competing. There was an ace race between the two of them. And he's remembered still as a model person, just a great human being, a lot of really moral and ethical person. He had called the Ace of Aces, so it's just sad we lost him. There's some pictures of him just collected, and you've probably seen a few of these. They're very popular. And he got his fiance and eventually his wife's picture planed on the plane, as you probably heard in the last one too. No, but the question is going to be from a modeling standpoint, is that picture colorized or not? There's a lot of debate about that because you only see black and white pictures. So this is another, you're in luck. It's a very popular model from Revell. Revell being the best, cheapest model kit you can get. And you can get this figure of Bong, but Steve, what do you think of that face that they painted?
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I think it looks a little bit crazy there. But anyway, you can get that, and they claim that that's a sculpt of Dick Bong. So you can put together what I'm showing you tonight. If you want to go to the gold standard of modeling, it's Tamiya out of Japan. This model's about $70. I mean, I thought it'd be even more than that these days. But you can really build up a nice P-38 with markings for Bong. And then Squadron Signal is still alive and well. They're in Nashville now. Their magazines and books are famous for being resources for modelers, and you can buy models from them too. Interesting, they have two P-38 action books. One features Bong's plane, the other one features McGuire's plane here. And so check them out if you've never checked out their website. Adding to the stash in 68, they like to say. So here's my my model with Bong. It's kind of a grainy photo. I didn't notice that, but um, I did everything I got to make it the best possible model I could. Got the figure there, and you know what? I stuffed the nose of the plane with Play-Doh and fishing weights, so it's not a tail sitter. I'm very proud of that, because otherwise you have to have a support for the tail. And then here's one of the books chronicling the ace race between the two guys. So it's on that. Line art again to help you make your 3D P38. And then, oh, we got some animation. So this is shows the progression of my modeling skills, and also how you make a texture map and you animate something.
Okay.
So here's the P38 model, much better than the one I made years ago. With the artwork, a lot of it, you're scanning your model decals to make your texture map decals. And then shooting down a Tony, so it came out really nice. And then just this is the last one on this. This is a story of Glacier Girl is totally next level. They went to Greenland and drilled down, what, 260 something feet to pull this plane out of the ice. And it flies now. I saw it at the Kavanaugh Flight Museum several years ago. I think it's one of the most beautiful planes I've ever seen. I know that they weren't able to use all the parts because the plane was pretty bad shape. It's in the corner, but still, the core of that plane is still there, the spirit of that plane. So amazing those guys did that. And I would, that kind of entrepreneurship or that kind of attitude for history is just awesome. And you can make a model of it. And here we're going to jump to a very popular person, Pappy Boynton. Steve, you ready? We can't show the opening of Baba Black Sheep because we'd probably get in big trouble. But we can show this, and we can go, we are poor little lambs who have lost our way. Man, I was 10 years old in the 70s when this came out, so I was hooked. I can't believe it just ran 2 seasons.
Yeah.
One of the crewmen on the show, I had his name somewhere, though. It was very Hollywood, and even Pappy Boynton said it was Hollywood. But one of the crewmen on the show, some of the crew, the Black Sheep members that didn't care for the show because of the kind of misfit piece of it and some of the outlandish stories. One of them was asked about the show being accurate. And he said, there were 2 things accurate about it. We flew Corsairs, we were in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
But I think he ended up writing a book and kind of countering, but still, you know what, entertained. It was how next level, you're a World War II ace pilot medal of honor recipient. In 1970, somebody makes a weekly TV show about you, and to have those beautiful planes to fly. So, Steve, I don't know if this guy's booked yet, but this is the guy that was supposed to be, I think, at the Atlanta wing.
Yes.
To talk about the book. He spent 15 years writing about the TV show. So I'd love to get that when it comes out.
Yeah.
Here's some actual pictures of Pappy Boynton. What a guy. I mean, some of the pictures are so classic. I read somewhere they used a lot of RC planes on the show. I didn't know that. I mean, they had to, I guess. I think there were 7 or 8 flying Corsairs. So for a lot of more dangerous scenes or crashes or explosions, they had to use RC planes and to protect the stunt pilots. And then they had branded some of the model kits back then. This is cool. This is toward building the model for myself. I couldn't find this figure. This artwork inspired the figure. Isn't that cool? That artwork inspired the figure of Pappy Boynton. But there's a sitting Pappy Boynton that looks pretty good if you want that for your plane. And then there's a model kit you can get. Academy has one. There might be a few others where you can get the decals, whether that's the show Lulu Bell or the one he actually flew. I made the show Lulu Bell. I like having the scoreboard on the side. So here he is. I made this a while back. To one of the first figures I made, kind of got me started on that kick. And so here's a fun plane to build. One of my favorite planes anyway, the Corsair. And then this is his book he wrote back in the 1950s. That became very popular, and he was very well known. This is not his plane. This is the first Corsair I made, but I'm working toward that 3D model. And so you're making a texture map. I just wanted to show you one. This is the fuselage texture map. And here's the final version of Pappy. She knows my grandpa name's Steve. Anyway, this came out really nice. I think it's a good rendition of that. Last thing about the Corsair, this is years ago, but they were restoring one of the Vought aircraft facility here, and they had this Corsair, but I thought it was really funny that they put Marines on one side, Navy on the other side. I thought that was funny. So Joe Foss, this is cool. We're going to talk about the Grinnells here. Lee and I were talking, I mean, we need a movie about this guy. He did everything, and he was really the quintessential pilot and fighter pilot, I think, back then. So just his story after the war is just remarkable. He becomes the youngest governor of South Dakota. He becomes the first commissioner of the AFL. The reason the 49ers will be in the Super Bowl in a few weeks is because of him. He started the whole Super Bowl movement. He went on and had sports shows. He was a commentator. He was president of the NRA, Medal of Honor recipient, of course. So he'd come to the American Fighter Aces reunions. I guess I wish I could have met him at one time. So just an amazing man, and the Grinnells knew him very well, and they said he was also a very faithful man, very solid guy. So anyway, someone to look up to. A great story. You'll see in a minute. He calls himself a proud American. So I didn't have a figure for him, but I have my bodies. You can see there, all the ones I've collected, and I found this one. He looks pretty good. I put a big cigar in his mouth because Joe Foss likes cigars. And then this Wildcat, I had to make my own decals for it, but I couldn't show him because I really was just making Black 53, which is one of his Wildcats that he shot down a lot of planes with. So I just wanted to show you can make your own decals, and this is a Grumman duck my friend Ken Kovar really likes. So I made my own decals. There's a process to it. Photoshop is important if you can use Photoshop. There might be other ways to do it, but this is a way to do it if you want to make your own decals for a model. So here's the final model with Black 53 on there. Of course, I roughed it up a little bit. He was on an island in the South Pacific, and not a lot of stuff to do maintenance, and Japanese attacking every day, so there was a little rough out there. But here he is looking as tough as heck. And this is a book called The Proud American. Now, Roy Grinnell did the cover for the book, and he did a spec piece. And Joe Foss saw that and said, I want that. And it was before even he finished it, so he ended up wanting the spec art, and it became the cover of the book. And this is another acquired model, so I acquired it, and when I acquired it, it came with a crazy texture map. I don't even know how that works. I can understand. That's the texture map, and that's how, but I figure out how to use it. But it was this ace that it came in a texture map as, testing you. It's O'Hare. So it came like O'Hare's Wildcat. So I modified it to make Foss's Wildcat. And so here's Foss's Wildcat. Came out great. It's a Wildcat now in my collection. And here's Roy Grinnell presenting art to Joe Foss in the middle, and that's Ward Boyce, the head of the American Fighter Aces Association. You can see some spec art that Irene shared with me and the book. Here's the artwork, number 20 for Joe by Roy Grinnell. And this is great. This is my last slide, but this is one of the last pieces they did with Joe Foss, the Grinnells. And when Roy painted this, he put a gun sight in the plane, and Joe Foss said, take it out. I didn't use one. I got real close, and when that plane was right in front of me, filling my forward canopy, I fired. So he said to take out the gun sight, and Roy did. Gabby Gabrescu, the Grinnells also knew, another prolific ace, our top ace in the European theater. So I don't need to go through his story, but it's here. There's a background to him that's quite interesting, especially since he was an ace. And you can see in the corner there, he was also an ace in the Korean War. So flew sabers. And you can see him with the Wolf Pack, which is Zemke's Wolf Pack over in that picture, and with Schilling, who'll pop up here in a second. But the cool thing about this, and you can buy the kit. This is maybe a little more expensive kit, but it comes with a fascinating model figure of Gabby Gillespie. So you can make his plane and have the figure in the kit. So he takes care of everything right now with one kit. And then here's another cool thing. This turned out kind of grainy, but you can buy a 72nd scale kit and get both his Piece 47 and his saber in the same kit. I made a big one at the same time I was making a small one. This was just a few months ago. I love the invasion stripes. They always look so cool to me. Yeah. So I made a big one. It's hanging over my head right now with his markings. So here's the 48 scale with Gabby Gabreski. Came out pretty good. The airbrushing is not great, but they had the kind of a model pattern on their plane. I heard they liked what the Germans were doing, and they kind of replicated that with their planes in this particular fighter group. And then here it is on a really good book about him I have. It's fantastic. Called Gabby, Fighter Pilot's Life. Got a great coffee table book. And so this is Dave Schilling. I made his plane before Gabby. I don't know how much I knew about Gabby Gabreski, but it was fortunate to make his plane. He shot down about 22 aircraft, I think, and was an ace himself. And I heard he was like best man at Jack Bradshaw's wedding. Jack Bradshaw knew. Have you ever heard that story? The other thing about This one is one of my best models. I really took care to do the underside texture mapping. So modelers, whether you're plastic or 3D, sometimes will just neglect it because you're not going to see it. But I took time with it on this one. I was glad I did that. And then here's the final Gabby. Turned out great, the basic stripes and all. So there it is. And here's Roy and Irene presenting Gabby Gabreski with Wolfpack Salute. And here's the artwork and the spec study. So he was there. She said he really liked cantaloupe. That's a backstory. So that's not in Wikipedia. He liked fruit. He liked eating fruit when he was at the event. Because sometimes they meet him at air shows, or they meet him just separately at making arrangements to meet him to do the signatures. I don't think we'll get to it, but Irene talked about being a flipper. She took care of all the paintings.
Yep.
She owned an art studio. So, just since there's another guest ace here, this is Oscar Perdomo. He's the last ace in the day. Great story. Roy painted the cover of the book. That's there. And the last day of the war, he shot down 5 planes. So he truly probably was the last ace of the war. But you can buy this model kit if you can find it relatively inexpensively, and it comes with the markings for this advanced P-47. And here it is as a 3D model. Great nose art. I love it. That's supposed to be his baby. But here with some B-29s because it was served in the South Pacific. Now this will be fun. We'll get through this one pretty quick. But I mentioned Swagger in my email to you guys. This guy had Swagger, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a cigar lighter in his cockpit. One time he went to a dinner party and he was flying his plane, and I guess he got too close to the English Channel, got jumped by some Spitfire, shot him down, and went on to the dinner party. He was really their the character that I think emphasized, but he also was not really, like I mentioned, he was not a hardcore Nazi or any kind of. In fact, he had issues with Goering. And if in the movie, I guess it was true, he said the only way to beat the British was to give them a squadron of Spitfires. I mean, so he didn't believe in a lot of that thinking, and but he was a soldier. He's
right.
Fighting for his country, and an airman for sure. What's so cool about this model kit, I just got it, it's my last one I built, is this figure. I mean, look, the figure that I had earlier, it looked like Snidely Whiplash from
the cartoons. Yeah,
the cartoon. I just thought, so this figure is sculpted by a Japanese artist. It's awesome, and it's awesome painted up. So it comes with the plane, and here it is. I know at the time I was taking pictures. I hadn't made the plane yet, so things are rough in Germany. You can't get this plane built. This is just a quick modeling tip for people out there. I promised I'd do some. When your models look like toys, one good way to protect your models is use floor polish. You wouldn't think I'm going to paint my models with floor polish, but it has a lot of advantages. I would suggest you research it and try it out. It's a great way for decaling too. If you've had decal problems, it's miracle stuff, and you just have to look for the right one. We used to all use Pledge, and Pledge is gone, so you just have to look for what's out there. But the main thing is, if you're going to weather your model, weathering makes it look more like a museum piece, like a real miniature. So use chalk pastels. I do. You want to, smoke stains. Think about where the plane's going to be. Is it on an aircraft carrier, or island, or a grassy field? And when you're weathering it, and also paint chipping, you can do a little bit or a lot. Like I mentioned at the bottom, the Japanese planes in the war looked awful because they had run out of paint. They couldn't repaint their planes. So one of my models, I think one figure there, the model feature there is one of only 2 that's been in a contest in place that I've had a model contest. So here is the general with his BF-109 with, I don't know, I think I had a picture of it earlier with a Mickey Mouse on the front. Well, it wasn't a Mickey Mouse. We had a mouse on the side with a gun and a hatchet or something. And then here's a book called The Fighter General about him. And then, there it is. The Mickey Mouse fighting Snidely at the top. But so I'm getting ready to do the 3D model and getting my decals, which I'll scan. I'll start my texture mapping. I'll look at my line art. And the 3D model really came out cool. This has got an alpha channel background because I'm going to add a background later. I acquired this Hinkle model too, so I'm putting this together, still working on it. But the model came out beautifully. It's an acquired model. I did all the texture mapping to get it to work. It looks great. So I'm working on the background. This still needs some fine tuning. And then, then we're going to quickly jump over to jets. So he flew a jet. He got in trouble, I guess, whatever. They ended up telling him to take charge of the new G-44 jet squadron. So he flew apparently number 3, White 3 they called it. Behind him is Heinz Barr's planes. And Heinz Barr, I made his ME-262, an original model years ago. he was the top jet ace, shot down 16 planes in ME-TIGS 2, also the third highest scoring ace in history. So there's his jet. And so Galan had a jet too, and this is his jet texture map. But problem is it's undergoing maintenance, so it's not ready yet. So I can't show it to him. I can't show you it. But anyway, these two guys came over to show Galan another jet, White 8, and it's Walter Nowotny and Eric Hartman. So I guess Hartman wasn't big on the jets, but Nowotny was in charge of the jet squad. He was tragically killed right in front of Galan. You know the story, by probably a Mustang. They don't know, or he could have had engine failure. But anyway, these two guys, this is the number 1 and number 2 ace in history. And most of their kills, you're not even supposed to say, their aerial victories is probably the appropriate way to say it. We're on the Eastern Front. But regardless, they fought constantly since 1939. A very different mindset and just incredible. And I read about Stigler after the war. These guys were considered heroes. They were knights of the air. The population revered them, propaganda and everything. But after the war, Stigler in the book Higher Call, he said they were shunned, they were abused, they were denied basic needs in their cities because the populace, you let us down, you let bombs fall on our cities. So it's very hard for the aces that came back. I mean, you only want to talk about Eric Hartman. He got tortured in Russia for like 10 years after they captured him. Anyway, this was a fun kit and not a tail sitter. I filled it with Play-Doh and fishing weights, but that's White 8, Nowotny's jet. And this is cool. We're about to see something cool. So here's a 3D model. You ready? This is actually AI did this for me. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then, Keegan's probably watching, so I made Keegan's plane too.
No, there you go.
So David McCampbell. I didn't get to finish out all these like I wanted to. Here's a Hellcat. Of course, he's a top Navy ace, Medal of Honor recipient. Sprue Brothers offers this Hellcat. You can make it, and his plane's really cool. This is another resin figure that blew my mind when I found it. Such a badass. He's doing his gloves or whatever, getting on the plane. So with his sidearm. But I thought this would represent David McCampbell. It's not him, but I thought it was a good representation. And so here he is with his Hellcat, Mincy, and has some other shots of the Hellcat model. Great modeling. Use dark sea blue is really the only. You just want to dull it down after you've used your gloss, your floor polish to get the decals on. So here's the 3D model, and 3D model shooting down a plane. This is an acquired model I texture mapped. Here would this be great to see Foss and McCampbell flying together?
Yeah.
What do these fighters have in common, Steve? I was going to ask you when you see these three cats.
Well, first of all, they're all cats. They're all from Grumman.
Yeah. And they've all shot down a Japanese Zero, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Final countdown.
Pop culture joke there. This is an AI mistake. So I asked it to make the Marianas Islands, and it put snow on the mountain. So AI makes mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I asked it to make the Marianas turkey shoot, and I don't even have that picture. But honestly, they were turkeys and fighters in the air together. So AI just doesn't get it sometimes. So here's the SoCal plane, which is incredible, that we had in Dallas about a year ago. I got a chance to go out to Southern California with Fifi and took some of these pictures. We flew in an awesome formation with Mincy 3 when we were out there for spring break. And then this is just a joke. I've had this up for a while. I have 3 cats at the house. Anyway, Freddie, I don't have a lot about Freddie because I was doing this alphabetically, but I'd love to talk more about him. Look at this figure. I wish it was in 48 scale. That's an incredible figure. That's a model figure that you can buy at Freddie. I may have real fabric on it. I don't know, but it replicates him in that picture. Here's my model. What was cool about Freddie is, and this may be a story you don't know, is his crew chief was a barber before the war, so he had red and white motifs on his plane because his crew chief painted it that way, including he had a barber's pole next to his exhaust on one side of the plane. And so here's 3D, and sadly we lost him Christmas Day, 1944.
Yep.
Otherwise he might have gone on and become the greatest ace of all time. But here's his plane, Crepes Almighty. Now last ace, Subaru Sakai. So much more you could dive into about him.
Oh, yeah.
This is a painting that Roy Grinnell did of the first aerial victory in a quad with the Chinese Air Force for a Sakai. And here's the kit you can get. It's very common. It's a Tamiya kit, but it's not too expensive. But it has this marking, so you really can build a nice. This is a great Zero kit, and I think it came with a standing pilot, so you can do a Sakai a tribute if you want to, no problem. And this is the book that you can get. I think they publish this on demand now, but he wrote Samurai about same time as Boynton with Mark. I've heard a little bit about that author, but so it's about his story of being a Japanese fighter pilot in the war. And of course, if you know a story, we're not going to go into it, but he had story things happen to him. And I know one story, he almost shot down Lyndon Johnson, I guess, in a transport. Lyndon Johnson, but the transport got away, if I know the facts on that one. But I'm preparing to make a 3D model. This is more recent. I had the same Japanese airplane being shot down, all my 3D scenes. So I ended up making Sakai's plane and just shooting down a B-24 here. So I added a lot of detail to it, a lot of the line art and everything. I used that to create a more impressive version of the Zero. And here it is tangling with Foss. That would have been great to see. I wonder who would have come out on top on that one. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I'm going to zip through these. So the best way to go next level with your history is the CAF. We're testaments to that. People sitting here. I wasn't really mechanic or pilot, but I did a lot of graphics for them. All this is the graphic stuff. And I won that dang chili contest last year. I just a quick shout out. We have a PX guy that follows the squadron around in his trailer. He and his wife, they're the best. And they have movie night now. They have a movie coming up. They do movies here in Dallas at the squadron. But yes, you can get all the stuff if you're a hardcore next level person in their PX, including Steve. You have 4 seconds. You have 4 seconds.
4 seconds to produce a challenge coin. Oh, yeah, they're all upstairs.
You only have 4 seconds to produce a good challenge coin. I read about it. This is my best one. When I was on a trip for Fifi, we met with P4. So if I have one that outranks you, you're buying drinks tonight. Okay.
Sounds good.
But a lot of people collect a lot of challenge coins, right? The hardcore people.
Yep.
Here's some 3D artwork I did with Fifi. That became a really useful thing to have over the years. I've gone on and modeled all the CAF aircraft more or less just because they're so interesting and they're fun to model, and I guess see them in person sometimes. This will be the next one I work on, Gunfighter. So I've snapped a picture of the nose art, so I'll use that when I make the 3D texture map. And there's a model kit that almost looks like Gunfighter. You just have to tweak it a little bit. And so Mustang Roundup. So I've texture mapped all these Mustangs now, so I can have a whole Air Force of 3D Mustangs if I want. Think of Steve and Leah know this. For two crazy guys and I went hardcore next level and made a 12-foot aircraft carrier that kids could land on. It was really a popular educational attraction at CAF for many years when we did shows. I mean, I went to a lot of other places too. In fact, the Hornet was lost in combat in a year, and I think this probably more landings were on this ship than the Hornet. I know that I don't want to sound silly about it. In fact, I treat this ship with a lot of respect. I don't put action figures and stupid stuff on it because it's a historical piece, and it teaches that too on the front end.
Right.
And on the back end, we can talk about landings. In fact, carrier landings really haven't changed in the concept of them since the beginning. So fascinating stuff, and it's just a fun tool to have at educational events. And so, Steve, you asked me the other day, about the Bismarck, right? So now I have a pool, and I have a perfect pool to race my battleships in. That's kind of a hardcore thing to do, but I have little motors I attach them to make them give them motors. They're not really RC. And then I know that was your favorite movie we talked about last time. So I have a pink submarine for the pool. And then it's important to know that there are model clubs in most of your cities. There's a really good one here. They just found out today that they're going to be permanently meeting once a month at Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. And they have a really great model show every year. Mark Wilson, there's a president. He's really dynamic. Really turned the club around. It's very festive. He's like you can see their goal, 1,000 models, or was it at the bottom there? Can't see it on my screen, but they have a goal really to make the hobby more exciting to people again. It's lost a little luster over the years, so maybe they can do that. When you got model dioramas that are next level, this is mine. I did the whole MASH camp in 3D. I did these MASH models in 3D, but some was driven because you get pretty amazing signatures when you're out there, and I got a script signed by Mike Farrell, BJ, so I put my models on top of it. That created a scene, but the models really complement. I would look at my ambulance to make the 3D ambulance, so I really used them in tandem to make you can tour the whole MASH camp on my website. And Klinger's there, by the way, 3D Klinger, right? I suck at this right now. I'm trying to learn it. I'm getting better at it. And in fact, I learned the hard way. Don't put your model out in the sun very long. The model kit plastics are a lot more susceptible to warping and being affected
Oh,
by heat and the sun. So anyway, I'm getting better at it. I've had a few successes, but it's something I have a lot to learn. There's a guy in our squadron, Steve Shockney, who made the whole Mandalorian costume for his son for Halloween. He has a bamboo printer, so it's definitely it's here to stay, and we'll see a lot more of it. But yeah, probably a lot of people got it for Christmas too. This is I'm a hardcore Star Trek person, so one of my best figures. This is actually 1/12 scale, so if you're hardcore about that, and then figures are a big deal. These are cool because this is actually on sand from Iwo Jima, not Iwo Jima. I'm going to work on that one next. Actually, I have sand, but this is from Omaha Beach, so that really makes this more of a treasure than you'd ever imagined, and know that these guys are on actual Omaha Beach sand. And I don't think that looks like Brad Pitt, but I got something to show you, Steve. It's a model kit that I figured when I was looking for ACES to pick up. Like, what pilot is that? He doesn't have any pilot uniform on or anything. Who is this guy? It's this guy. They made a resin model of this guy that looks just like Steve McQueen. And I could not believe it. What amazing work that is. Best autograph ever for me was Dick Cole. Right. So you got to plan for it. I hadn't made the B-25 models yet, so I painted 2 wings separately, and he signed them at the 75th anniversary at our squadron event. That's my lovely daughter there. You were there, Steve. She sang the national anthem, I think. And if you're my friend, I'll make a model for you. So I gave Al Bensing, my good friend, one of the signed B-25 models, and I have one for myself to build. This is just Docent. I've been to the Medal of Honor Museum, and brand new one. It's now voted one of the best museums in the country. Frontiers of Flight is an amazing museum. My friend there is Don Capone. He's a modeler. He came on as a docent. And there's another docent I met that had 6,000 hours. I said, wow. Don, you got a lot of hours. And they were putting together an event that night. It was Christmas time, where they have it's kind of like quartet that does music. They do it pretty often there. And I thought, oh, you're going to do Christmas music. And they said, no, we're doing a tribute to Taylor Swift under the planes at night. So I'm glad I get a chance to at least talk about this. I went to the American Fighter Aces reunion, never met these guys. And this is a group founded in 1960. Chuck de Bellevue is their incoming president, one of our Vietnam aces. Duke Cunningham passed away. He was their ace prior to this. They have a great mission. They have a lot of artifacts and stories to tell. They have if you've seen the Medal of Honor book, they have a book comparable to that chronicles all the aces in one book. I have a copy of it here. There's no other book like it. So they had an event, and I met them, and I'm going to hope to do more work with them as time goes on. They really want to push the education piece of what they do. But they had a keynote there. Cesar Rico Rodriguez, he came. He's one of the members of the group. But in the Iraq War, he shot down 2 MiGs, and they shot down a MiG in an F-15 Eagle in the Kosovo War. And he told us the story about it. And they just installed his plane at the Smithsonian. So you can go see the plane that was used to shoot down the 2 MiGs in Iraq in the Smithsonian now. And he was an awesome guy. He's got a charity called Splash 3 out in Arizona, I think. And then over the right is pictures of Gene. Gene's just the ultimate person who knows how to care for veterans. He's been a veteran escort and worked with them for years. He's an honorary ace, as is Rico. So just great, cool guys. There's some art from Roy Grinnell, folks. The best there was, and his artwork is just beautiful. And Irene pushes it. Our aviation art doesn't have to match your sofa, right, Steve?
That's right.
So just some of his art in his coffee table books. He did art for George Lucas and a Star Wars book, Western art. Just beautiful stuff. I'm so honored to have some of stuff, some art in my house, thanks to both of them, and some signed pieces too. So Irene, I'm at the end of the presentation. This is fun. I get to show you this. She was a flipper. We're gonna have her on the show. I talked to her tonight, but she called herself a flipper, and he wrote a guide for this. So she'd get me make sure that when the aces or the pilot was signing prints, they signed at the same place. It wasn't smeared or smudged. Things were handled carefully because those prints are priceless after they're signed. Yeah. So that was her job for many years, and she wrote up a guidebook for it. And as a person who owned an art studio, she really knew how to care for art, and that was important to Roy. And then we've had a bomb group come visit us. If you want to join a bomb group or association, this is all families. There were no veterans there, but they're still bonded by their relatives. and I made some art for them. I hate that well, at least nose art has been saved by the CAF to some degree, but
Mhm.
this is what really was nose art on one of the 93rd bombers. And then I think my last slide here. This is my friend Lisa. She would still come out and do Rosie. She used to do Rosie for us a lot. One of my teachers, actually, I talked her into it. But she was fantastic. Rosie even went on to Ypsilanti, Michigan, and did some stuff. And she
Oh,
let me make her into nose art. My next project, I want to build this Aces plane because I have a Focke-Wulf. I'm going to try my airbrushing skills. But this was I had it here. He's one of the fourth or fifth, top aces. He was another one of the top 10 German aces. But in the longest day, he's the guy that went ballistic in the tent when he found out they went into the strafe the beaches and there were just two of them there. Remember that from the movie, the
hmm.
German pilot? Well, that was based on him. And then he went on after the war. He was in the brewing business. But anyway, his plane's there, and he had his wife's name on a card like that. And are you ready for this? To see if it works? My aces are taking a bow thanks to AI. What do you think of that?
There you go.
AI did that for us. And I'm done. I got
Yeah.
it.
Well,
I'm
very
sorry I
interesting.
didn't leave any time for questions. I'm very passionate and animated and over caffeinated.
Well, we can run over time a little bit, and we do have some questions. You've talked about texture mapping a number of times. For those who don't quite understand what that is, kind of give us the basics of what texture mapping is and how that fits into what you're doing.
Well, good. And I can do it quick. So when 3D model's made, it's called a wireframe.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's just a solid. It can, if you want to render it as a solid chunk of white or gray or whatever the model would come in, that it would do that for you. But then you can create texture maps, and that's going to be something that comes in as a 2D art image, like something you've made in Photoshop. So it's like a flat image of something, and then with the software, you bring it in and you tell it to apply it to the model. It adheres to the curvature and shape of the model. Oh. So that's how you skin your model. Really, it's a modern version of paint. It's computerized paint. And so that's how you do it. So you want to do it strategically. The more detail you put in your texture map, the more realistic your model is going to look. And some of them, obviously, if you've seen Avatar or anything else, those are texture maps on those models. Yeah. And that looks pretty good. I mean, those guys are huge. They're professionals.
Yeah.
Can't really say. I don't know. They're out there somewhere. Maybe they're aliens. I don't know. Because the work they're doing just looks way too realistic. I did see Avatar. Long movie.
Yeah. What is your favorite scale to model in?
For me, the 48 scale is the most practical. Making a big model, I enjoy making that big model just because it's fun. It is, even though I weathered it, made it look really, it's kind of toy-like. It's kind of fun when it's big, but it's heavy and you really don't know where to put it. 700 scale is great for ships. I think going bigger than that's hard. Like you can see the ships that I have that float in the pool. That's great, but they take up a lot of shelf space. They get broken easy. So 700 scale, most of the ships I'm looking at are 350 scale, which is 3 feet long typically for a battleship. 700 scale is more manageable. So planes 48 scale, ships 700 scale, and then just about all the armor you're going to do is going to be 35th scale. That's a very common scale for armor.
Okay.
I think I got that right.
Yeah. You mentioned a number of different the plastic model companies. Revell is the one that sticks in my mind because that was the one I remember as a kid. But is there a way for the typical consumer to be able to kind of get an idea or a feel for the quality of a model? I mean, it may not just be the brand name, but are other things that they should be looking for?
Yeah, and these days probably the sprues. That's what the model plastic parts are on. It's called the sprue, and you buy a sprue cutter. Mm-hmm. They're 3D printed probably now these days, but you hear the word sometimes flash associated with scale models, and that means the model has a lot of extra chunks of plastic on it that you have to trim off. That would mean it's probably lesser quality. Some of them just don't have a lot of detail in the model. I mean, Revell's the monogram's okay, but it's definitely not going to have the detail of a Tamiya. I mean, you have the rivet counters, and the people are really hardcore modelers that look at that kind of stuff. The contest winners are typically going to have much more detail. The hardcore models do resin parts, they print their own parts, or they do photo etch parts to add a lot more detail to a cockpit or to a railings to a ship or something. So it's really hard though to take a pig and put lipstick on it if it's not a good model to start with. But also you need to practice to have some fun too. Don't think everything's gonna be put in a show. Just build it
Right.
for fun. Build it to honor an ace or somebody from history, and just enjoy that history, right?
Exactly. You mentioned decals. What's the process that you use to create those? I know you mentioned Photoshop.
Well, you can scan them. Often I could find if somebody's selling decals, you can find
Oh,
JPEG images on the internet, and usually I usually look for large or higher quality when I do my search, and then you can use Photoshop to isolate pieces of it, like if it's a nose art or something you want from a decal sheet. I don't know how. I don't know if I'm infringing on anybody's artwork there or anything, but it's because those decals are artwork too, I assume. But
mhm.
you can do that and just put it on your model and play with it. Making your own decals is fun too. Photoshop is key. I don't know, things are with AI probably are coming along that are maybe improvements on that. Everybody uses Canva now, but
Mhm.
I'm just a Photoshop guy. It's the duct tape of multimedia.
There you
So
go.
it seems every day there's always a use for it until something better comes along for me.
Good. And Leah just dropped in a comment. It says there's lots of kit reviews by modelers on the internet. Just go take a look and see
Yeah, just
what the
keep in mind their
consensus is.
mindset too. Just make sure they're not going to be just over the top and just critical, because if you get down in the weeds, it's no fun anymore. But honestly, they might prevent you from spending. Models are not cheap anymore.
Right.
Spending a lot more money than you want to, and then getting a dog of a model.
Yeah.
They're a great sales. Hobbytown is here. The Hobbytown's good. I mean, they have sales once in a while. Unfortunately, and Hobby Lobby, but unfortunately, Michaels I think is getting away from modeling, and
Okay.
it's just online's probably the way to go, but you gotta be careful. Buyer beware kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. What software do you use for your 3D modeling?
I'm still using Strata, and Strata was so kind to me when I got my new Mac. They put a plugin in it to help me reopen some of my older models, because some of my older models have texture maps embedded, and I don't want to rebuild all that. So I was able to do that. So all my older models are live, and I can revisit them. And then I think Strata's good. Strata made the game Myst years ago.
Hmm.
That was years ago, a long time ago. But it works for me, and I like it. I've tried other ones, and people use more advanced stuff and might be using things in high-end school, especially things that maybe cater toward the 3D printing world. But that's what works for me. Strata Studio Pro, or Strata 3D, that's called.
Good. And
And I'm on
I
an
know
Apple
it.
now. I'm on an
Yeah.
Apple.
At the very outset of the program, you mentioned that you have your drone license. Um, you've done plastic models, 3D. Any thought to getting into RC aircraft?
Well, I did a story on that with one of our pilots, Kurt Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
He's a young guy. He's got some amazing RC models. Um, I don't know. I just think of it crashing into a tree. And I just love watching those stories. You know, those priceless stories. You build a
Yeah.
$18,000 B-52, show your wife a price tag, and crash it on the first flight. I know, but Kurt has a place he flies out here. If anybody wants to go and connect with Kurt Lewis, and he's got replicas of Diamond Lil, and he's got a jet and stuff. But he did
Wow.
tell me, I interviewed him, the piloting skills he has don't necessarily mean as much as you would think for the RC flying
Right.
skills. They don't really relate as much as you might assume, because it's a different skill set. RC is just different, but it doesn't mean you have to be a pilot to be good at RC. And I
Right.
found that refreshing, because you might think that would be something you'd have in your back pocket, be good, but it doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
I've tried on RC simulators and I've not done well.
Yeah, I
That's
remember.
not
I
to say
read
I'm a great pilot either. So
Saburo Sakai consulted with Microsoft on their flight simulator.
yeah.
That was
Oh,
written into his bio, so that was interesting.
very good. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
No, I'm just glad I made it through. And one thing I would love to hear from people, and maybe we can revisit it, is how they take history to the next level.
Yeah.
Because I think I am in one way, but everybody's doing it in different ways. There's a Joe Foss Squadron. I've never even talked to them, but what do they do to celebrate the name of their squadron and their namesake?
Yeah.
Um, how many more Phil Collins are out there that we don't know
Yeah.
about? On the internet, you see stuff all the time, blows your mind. People have invested time and treasure into something it's connected to history. I just love it. So I'd love to hear more stories, and maybe we collect them one day and we do something with that. And that's fascinating to me.
There we go. Well, thank you, Con, for sharing your stories tonight, and thank you for tuning in as well. And we'd like to hear your thoughts on tonight's presentation or any ideas you might have for a future topic. Just drop us a line at media@cafhq.org. If you liked what you saw tonight, please share it across your social media platforms, and remember, subscribe on YouTube. Click that bell icon, and you'll get notifications when our new episodes are posted. Until next time, I'm Steve Buss, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds. Have a great night.